Who are the Men in Black? No, it's not them, and it's not them either. There may be a lot of movies about the Men in Black, but before those movies came out, they were actually considered to be a possibly real organization. At least they were within the ufology community. Like in the movies, How'd it go? Go! There she goes. Moving on. Like in the movies, the job of the real Men in Black is to keep the presence of extraterrestrials unknown to the public. So that involves going to visit people who have seen crashes or UFOs in not just, you see a little light in the sky and you think it might be a UFO, but have seen concrete with their own eyes. This cannot be anything else. Ignore the noise, the cat has gone into a box. But unlike the Men in Black in the movies, they don't do this in a very peaceful way. In real life, they're known to use threats and intimidation to get people to listen to what they have to say. A lot of people who claim they've been visited by the Men in Black have claimed to have been told that if they said anything about what they saw, they could be hurt or their family could be hurt. But where and when did this all start? People think that the first Men in Black encounter happened with the Maury Island incident back in 1947. I think it was June 21st. Two men by the name of Fred Chrisman and Harold Dahl, I might be pronouncing those wrong, but I think those are their names, were working at sea. I believe they were patrolmen, and they saw 6 donut-shaped UFOs or unidentified flying objects in the sky. One of them dropped some debris and they described it as a lava-like metal. Now obviously this made it to the news, but very soon after, these two men were visited by a man in a black suit who told them that they weren't allowed to say anything else about the matter. Now after that, some authorities came to speak to the two men and they said that the whole thing was a hoax. They made it up. But that conflicts with what FBI officials claim, which is that if questioned by the authorities, he was going to say it was a hoax because he did not want any further trouble over the matters, and that was in the official files of the FBI about this incident. They believed that he was being threatened and he was saying it was a hoax so that he wouldn't have any trouble, that nobody would hurt him, nobody would come after him, nobody would make his life a nightmare. This is about Chrisman specifically because he's the one who said it was a hoax. Now, this and following events have led people to believe that the Men in Black are a government institution, specifically a US government institution. They are the ones tasked with stopping the spread of UFO and extraterrestrial information. Now, although at the time there was no official documentation of any kind of Men in Black or intelligence debunking committee within the US government or the FBI, just 5 years after that incident in 1952, the Air Intelligence Service Squadron was formed in the United States government, also known as the 460 Seconds. There's different ways of saying that. I think I'm saying that wrong, but those are the right numbers, at least. Now, the AISS's job was to go to crash sites, be them of UFOs, as in unidentified, or of planes, to gather intelligence and to talk to witnesses to keep everything as quiet as possible. They also wrote many reports on UFO sightings too, and that would also include speaking to witnesses. People have believed that this AISS was the official name for the Men in Black. In fact, people have gone so far as to say that the IASS were the ones who worked on Project Blue Book. And if you don't know what that is, that was the official US government investigation into UFOs. Since then, there have been countless stories of UFO or extraterrestrial witnesses being visited by these men in black suits who tell them that they can't speak about their sighting, otherwise something bad could happen to them. Now, from the previous evidence, it does sound like they are a government agency, but there were more conflicting stories. There was a man named Albert Bender, and he had a newsletter called The Space Review, where he would talk about UFO sightings. Now, he was visited by what he called the Men in Black, and actually he was the first person to give them the name Men in Black because they had black suits, black glasses, and black hats. He was so scared by their visit that he stopped his newsletter. He just outright stopped it. But a friend of his, called Gray Barker, managed to get him to confide in him. Then he later wrote a book about it called They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers. What's so interesting about this particular story and this book is that J. Edgar Hoover, who was the director of the FBI, found out about this book, asked for a copy of it, and wanted to know who the Men in Black were. He had never heard of them. He had no clue who these people were or what they were doing, and he put out an investigation to find out who they were. Which then leads us to believe that the Men in Black were not a government body. They were something completely different. Now this is where we get back to Albert Bender's story, the writer of the Space Review, the friend of the man who wrote They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers. With his encounter with the Men in Black, the encounter that made him stop his newsletter, he claimed that the Men in Black came through the wall. They did not knock on the door. They did not come through a window. They came through the wall as if it wasn't there. Along with that, Bender also claims that they communicated with him telepathically. And it's not just him that said things like this. Many other, shall we say, victims of Men in Black visits have also said that they have done things like come through the walls or knew what they were thinking before they had even said anything, or put thoughts in their heads. Now don't get me wrong, these don't look like what you would expect an alien to look like, but the description of what they do look like doesn't really settle your nerves. Most accounts of the Men in Black say that they actually look like cadavers or like walking dead bodies. They're very pale. They don't look like they're even breathing. They look like zombies. And because of all these different accounts that are so similar, of them speaking telepathically, of the government not really knowing who they are, of the way they look, has people believing that they themselves are extraterrestrials working on their own to stop the spread of information. Now, whether that's true or not, we obviously don't know. But the story itself is strange, anyway. And of course, there's some people that claim that the Men in Black and the government in the US are now working together, but again, we don't know if that's true either. We're just gonna have to try and make that judgment for ourselves and hope that one day we will find out. But for now, the only advice that I can give you is that if you're ever unlucky enough to witness some kind of extreme UFO encounter and are then visited by the Men in Black, maybe just do what they tell you, because they don't sound like somebody that you want to mess with. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe and click the bell button to get notifications when I upload. It would mean the world to me if you subscribe, and also share it with a friend who you think might enjoy this. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this subject as well. Always curious your opinions of what you think this phenomenon is. If you think they're a government agency, if you think they're extraterrestrials, or if you think they're just a movie. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.